Welcome to a very special all-Yaffee Heartland Journal podcast featuring two spirited commentators, Michael Yaffee of the Yaffee Show, heard on News Talk 92.5 FM and 770 AM WVNN, and of course, Steve Abramowicz, your host of the Heartland Journal Podcast, editor-in-chief of the heartlandjournal.com. Now buckle in for a great show of the very best of the Yaffee and Steve Show. Welcome to the Heartland Journal Podcast with Steve Abramowicz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Welcome back to Yaffee Live here on Talk Radio 102.3. Yeah, we are covering the breaking news out of Minneapolis. Apparently one texter was mad for me bringing this up, but this is the latest on this. I'm not making it up. This is what it is. The New York Post has confirmed that the shooter in Minneapolis who targeted kids at a Catholic school is the guy who identifies as a female, is a male, had a manifesto he posted on YouTube with the trans equality flag and everything else, and wrote on the barrels of the gun and everything else, killed Trump. This is for the kids. So the New York Post has confirmed this. He identifies as Robin Westman, formerly Robert Westman. He's the shooter at Annunciation Catholic Church who killed 2 kids, 14 others injured. Horrific situation. So there you go. I know one texter was mad. I even brought it up, said it's because we're not loving enough to trans people. That is not the reason. I'm sorry. Not going to stop speaking the truth because some people might get offended. All right, let's go to our guest right now, Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder of the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Check out his podcast. Steve, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. It's a very sad day. I mean, 2 children dead, aged 8 and 10, 17 others injured, 14 are children, 2 in critical condition. I don't know who that texter is, probably a bot, but come on. We're supposed to coddle people like this? That's the problem. His mom signed off on it, so there's no reasoning with this. We have a trans Tifa, I call it trans violence problem, and it's probably the drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. There's a lot we still have to find out, but this would be the second one in recent years, high profile, that you have someone like this. The other one was in Nashville, was in Tennessee at the Covenant School.
There's a lot more than 2, but yes, Covenant School was about 2.5, 3 years ago, and they buried all the evidence. They wouldn't release the diaries or the text messages or anything, and so a big rumor mill just went rampant through the country that it was hatred of Christians or abuse of the child or all these rumors. Nobody would know because they wouldn't tell us, and it turns out it was, a literally trans Tifa socialized Marxist type of indoctrination that drove them nuts, and they took it out on the weakest among us, kids at school. It's just terrible. We could have maybe even headed this one off if they would have paid more attention to that. And there was a copycat after the Covenant one in Nashville who went after the wife of Governor Lee. They don't talk about that very much, but we've known that this is a problem for a long, long time, and happened to do it right around the time of the rise of the transgender /Antifa /pharmaceutical industrial complex. Nobody ever wants to talk about it, just me. And I get the same kind of hate text going, you don't understand how difficult it is to walk in their shoes. You're right, but we aren't trying to understand it because we're not dealing with it. We're not trying to heal it. And look, innocent kids just got killed for no reason. It's not because they're Catholic, I don't personally believe. It's because they were targets of a lunatic.
Yeah, and it does seem like this person, unfortunately, I've already seen some of the manifesto video that's going on. I mean, it's really, really disturbing. What's your response to those, though, that say this is why we need gun control? I see Amy Klobuchar already saying that. Justin Jones already saying that. If we would just ban assault rifles, this would never happen.
Number one, you didn't use an assault rifle. Number two, they had someone on Fox News saying, yeah, dozens of bullets can be fired with a simple pull of a trigger. Not true. Not even a machine gun can do that. And so they just don't even know what they're talking about. They always run to the cameras, never let a crisis go to waste. Here in Nashville, there's this senator named Heidi Campbell. She'll always say it's the gun. I always tweet, it's not the gun, because I'm trying to tell everybody it's a psychosis. And if you treat a psychosis with psychotic drugs, you are going to get violent outbursts. This is what they do. If they're violent enough to cut off body parts and, look at his tattoos and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with tattoos, but, there's a little bit of a pain indulgence there. These people are mentally ill and they need to be institutionalized or incarcerated, not left to. And you know what they're also going to find out probably in 24 to 48 hours? Known to authorities. The FBI was there real fast. They were, that manifesto was up on Facebook earlier today. They knew. They just didn't want to go near it because of all the blowback from the wokesters that will say, well, it's all this rhetoric about Cracker Barrel. If you would have just been accepting of the LGBT plus community, this wouldn't happen. Well, that's really sad to say. That community is also the same one that has these violent outbursts and kills people, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're inducing, right? But if you say you are trying to sell more biscuits and gravy to the LGBT community, so we're changing our Southern, I don't know, whatever, Jim Crow attitude, so that this gets to be.
Well, I don't think it was Jim Crow. I'll put it that way. I don't think that's probably what they would call it. Yeah. All the phobias, the Islamophobe, the homophobe. That's always their response.
It all gets lumped together by the Democrats just pandering to their base, who they have unleashed all this rhetoric that actually makes them go crazy and do this stuff. Remember the Bernie Sanders guy who shot up the softball game of Republicans, or we're going to punch a Nazi in the face. They're talking about Trump, or they're going to try to assassinate the president twice because he ran as a Republican, even though he spent his whole life as a Democrat. This is what happens. You start working with crazy people, you get crazy outbursts. So 2 weeks ago, everyone was in love with Sydney Sweeney because she wore some jeans on a thing, and they were saying, "Oh, we love white heterosexuals again." Well, now they're going to try to blame it and say, "See, you unleashed a whirlwind. You triggered these people to act out." No. You've been catering to them for so long with their delusions. Where did he get the guns? Where did he get the training to shoot it straight and kill people? Where did he get the mask on his face in order to do the killing, right? You have to be a trained killer to kill people. That's not easy to do. Watch the movie, Unforgiven. This person did that. You need some serious numbing to get away with that, and I think it has to do with the drugs, SSRIs, they call them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have no idea what kind of drugs he was on or anything. I'll let you speculate on that. Obviously, he's out of his mind. And obviously, he had a hatred towards Christians and Trump. And I'm not just speculating on that. He said that in his manifesto. It's right there for everyone to see. I'd say the only good news out of this is he could have killed a lot more people and didn't. Thank God. A lot of them are injured, unfortunately. But two, in a situation like this, it could have been a lot worse. That's the only good news out of this, I think. I'm speaking with Steve Abramowicz. He's the founder of the Heartland Journal. We are covering the breaking news. Pretty horrific story out of Minneapolis. You also mentioned Cracker Barrel there. That was going to be like the big story of the day, other than, I guess, Taylor Swift, too, that they have decided to keep their old logo. Kind of interesting they do that right after Trump comments on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a joke. Robbie Starbuck, you can go to my Twitter feed or Robbie's, and you can just see how long-standing this has been. They basically hired a very woke CEO. She's got the right glasses. She's got the right smile. And she just decided to take the culture of this wonderful Southern quaint restaurant and throw it in the trash like Bud Light. I mean, they basically said, we hate our customers. We're going to become the next Starbucks. And we don't care what anybody says. And so then they get shamed because finally they decide, okay, we're going to go with the public face now. We're going to change the logo and take Uncle Cracker away. And everyone got upset, but then all you have to do is go back and say, wait a minute, they do DEI training just like Vanderbilt, just like UTK. They do hiring quotas for non-white people. I mean, they have been really, really bad for quite a while. And if you talk to the people who work there, they'll say, yeah, we don't make fresh biscuits anymore. You know, they're as hard as a rock, and we microwave meatloaf, and they've changed completely this institution, just like they do this all the time. You know, go to a football game, look at the cheerleaders for the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, I didn't even put that together. Minnesota has really had a bad couple of decades. So, and a guy ran for vice president. So I'm looking at a picture right now of the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. She has a protect trans kids with a large hunting knife on her T-shirt. I mean, violence and
yeah, I saw that picture. I saw that picture going around. Yeah.
Does it make make it make sense, right? So this is what I'm talking about. It's Cracker Barrel, Bud Light. They all just decided for some reason that this is what they're going to do. But interestingly enough, there was a McKinsey study that just came out, just had this on my show this week, where 9 out of 10 companies that did it showed no material gain in their earnings. So they bought a bill of goods thinking that this was the right thing to do, make movies about this, make commercials about this, make products about this, and sell this. And you end up like Target, where your earnings are way, way down, your stock is way, way down. And, you know, the investors like BlackRock are even mad because they're supposed to be making money, but it was their idea in the first place. So it's really just proven to be a failed policy. And sometimes it turns deadly, as we see today again. So really, I think it's the 9th time. I think we've had 9 instances of a transgender man or woman acting out with a weapon. So it's not new.
Well, I mean, and I think a lot of it is just like what you said, just it's a mental disorder. So you're already dealing with one very troubling mental disorder, and it's usually people with very troubling mental disorders that do something crazy like this, and we just ignore it now in our society because we're too afraid to address it. We're just all politically correct, or I guess woke is the term now, I guess.
When I guest showed your
guest host my show, yes.
When you went on vacation,
yeah.
I had a reporter on from Seattle, and we talked about this. Another of my friends from Seattle is a reporter named Katie Davis-Court. She has been documenting all of what's going on in Portland. 9 out of 10 of the federally prosecuted Antifa members are transgender. 90%. We have something else going on here than just, you know, Johnny or Judy at school confused about which, you know, bathroom to use. We really have a little army building of people on.
It's a social contagion. You know, it's a social contagion. It became...
Well, they're losers, and they're getting paid, and they're getting funded, and they're getting, you know, propped up, and they're being convinced that this is the right thing to do, which if you go look back at the history of color revolutions around the world, that's what you do. You find the other, quote unquote, and you make them feel as if they only have one way possible to feel better, and that's to lash out. And so why not burn a federal building in Portland? Why not be on the streets in LA? Why not this, that, the other thing, when you know you're not going to get a job and become the next CEO of Cracker Barrel?
Yeah. And it's like it becomes a social contagion beyond that because you know, there might be some very few out there who really do suffer from like a gender dysphoria and need real help to deal with gender dysphoria, and a lot of them grow out of it. But when you start just placing it everywhere in our pop culture, it becomes a social contagion, and it also becomes almost a political statement. And then you have people that have serious mental problems who latch onto that as well. And that's, I mean, we're just finding more and more evidence that it's a real problem. Steve Abramowicz
look at the arsenal. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll let you have the final word.
Thank you. I was going to say, look at the arsenal that Audrey Hale had at the Covenant shooting. Look at the arsenal online of this kid with the words saying "kill Trump" and queer, you know, why so queerious and all these other things. Where do they get, quote unquote, the gun when the Democrats are saying gun-free zones and no guns allowed and all, you know, take away everybody's guns? It's the exact same people that are saying don't have guns that are using them to commit murder. It's terrible. It's them. They're the problem.
It's Pretty crazy situation. Steve Abramowicz, really appreciate you coming on the show. As always, I know I'll talk to you again in the future.
God bless you.
Hello, this is Gino Bolso, State Representative from District 61 in Williamson County. You are listening to the HeartlandJournal.com podcast.
Okay, but if you're new, I'll remind you, this is the show where you can count on the latest news, the best guests, and the best live and local talk. And I am Yaffee, your voice of reason. We're on 1 to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, right here on Talk Radio 102.3. And every Wednesday, we speak with Steve Abramowicz, who is the founder and contributor to the Heartland Journal. Steve, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing today, my friend?
My pleasure, my pleasure. One of these days we'll actually have nice, fun, comfortable, Christmassy things to talk about. But unfortunately, we had another tragedy in the East and South, so here we are.
Yeah, I was going to say one of these days, but I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon, unfortunately. And, you know, especially if people follow you on social media, you've been doing a really good job of covering not just the vicious murder itself, which I've been talking about on the show in North Carolina, but also the judge who let this guy out, the history of her, and how this is not the only case like this. There have been so many cases like this.
It has been a pandemic, as a matter of fact. I mean, we got this guy. So the Carlos Brown brother, Stacey DeJohn Brown, he killed a guy that he robbed. His father, both of their fathers, also in jail. And so here it is. Only because it's on camera, we get to hear about, sorry if I mispronounce it, but it's Irina Zarutska, the poor woman who was a refugee from the Ukraine war, right? So she's in America for a better life, and this happens, which, you know, unfortunately, this is the thing. I've traveled a lot of places in the world, and they always think that we're a very violent, Wild West culture, and it's things like this that prove it out to be true. So, you know, you got soft on crime Republicans like John Cornyn in Texas, who was expressing sympathy for George Floyd, and glee, practically, for Derek Chauvin's conviction. But to your point, you know, what do Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and North Carolina have in common?
I'm going to guess cashless bail.
Non-lawyer magistrates handle lower-level cases.
Worse.
So Teresa Stokes, she's a non-lawyer that let him go. But worse, she owns a treatment clinic where he was going to, that he wouldn't be able to if he was in jail for any of his 30 past crimes. So she's profiting on him being on the street. Stokes reportedly released Brown, who had a long record of violent crime and mental illness, on a mere written promise to appear in court. Where have we heard that before? Illegal immigration, right?
Catch and release.
So not a judge. Yeah, catch and release. Not a judge or a licensed practicing attorney. She was placed there to funnel people to her North Carolina licensed in-house behavioral program. And guess what? Tuesday, Vi Lyles, which is a great name, Viles, reelected to a third term as mayor. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, you know, I played a cut of someone who's running for city council in Charlotte. He's an African-American man as well, James Bowers, and he was talking about how enough is enough. But you just have to wonder, I mean, will the people elect some change there, or are they just going to keep electing the same people who make these same mistakes?
Well, we knew about it over the weekend. If you looked at my Twitter feed, you could see, you know, the actual murder. And the sad thing, of course, is the sick people. There are 4 of them in that same car that didn't do a darn thing. People are saying, like, oh, they didn't know. They were surprised. Okay, well, the woman's bleeding out. Why don't you go put your hand on her neck and try to stop the bleeding? She'd be alive to this day, but nope, can't be bothered. So we know that crime is out of control. The Department of Justice, they're suing Boston and Mayor Michelle Wu over sanctuary city policies and you know, releasing violent criminals onto the streets, right? Well, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu said, I feel very grateful that outside my home, there's a police car stationed 24 hours a day. Nice. You're old enough to remember Daniel Penny, who they wanted to bury under the jail for preventing something exactly like this. So the BLM types and Democrats made a big deal about him being a racist instead of a hero. And then you got CNN's Van Jones says that white people have a racist virus in their brain that activates in an instant. Now, he's from Memphis, by the way, the crime capital of the country, that the FBI said, you know, Senator Brent Taylor wants the National Guard to come save them. But what's funny about that is on May 29th, 2020, I remember it was like it was yesterday, a guy named Dante Stewart, a writer and speaker whose works have been everywhere, including Christianity Today, of course, he wrote a poem that said, "Black rage in an anti-Black world is a spiritual virtue." Black rage is what they tried to say OJ had. So now Van Jones says it's white people. Texas's Crockett, who's out of a job now because they gerrymandered her out, said 80% of crime is done by white supremacists.
Oh my gosh.
So if the FBI is right, and we had 1.1 million incidents last year, that's 800,000 white supremacists with white rage, according to Van Jones. I don't think so. So she lied, he lied, and also she went to college in Memphis. Not sure what they teach people at Rhodes, but the truth is Black men age 18 to 45 are 2.3% of the population, approximately 20 million Black males in the United States, about 6% of the total U.S. population, yet commit 55% of the homicides, 70% of interracial violent crimes, Black on white. As a disproportionate share of other felonies, they also do as well. So, and you know what, as sick in the head and evil and gross that guy in North Carolina is, and his brother and his dad apparently, the four people sitting next to him, they're worse, man. Whatever happened to the Good Samaritan parable by Jesus?
I couldn't believe it.
It's disgusting.
I could not. I really, because you never know exactly what you will do in a situation like that. But I got to tell, I just can't imagine at least going over to the girl and asking if she's okay. And they couldn't even bring themselves to do that. I just can't believe it.
He stood up and he surprised everybody. Nobody would expect it. He wasn't giving signs that he was going to do this. And so I get it. He would have got away with slashing her throat and stabbing her 2 more times in the neck. But as he walked away and she's, in shock and bleeding out, that's when you say, all right, my safety doesn't matter anymore. I will get up and I will put my hand, or I'll take off my shirt and I'll wrap it real tight around her wounds so she won't die. But instead, they get up and they move. One guy goes to another car as if it was just business as usual, and he's watching some guy, take a dump on the subway like they do. And so one more thing about Blue City crime. WeGo Public Transit is a public transportation agency in Nashville, right? City buses. They had about 8 million people on there last year, about 28,000 per weekend as of this year, actually, 2025, for second quarter. The mayor wants $9 billion to extend it to towns like mine, 20 minutes south of Nashville. A lot of the videos that you see on X, on my TikTok and X, are violence happening on mass transit trains or buses. This is big time in Seattle. You couldn't even go on there because of the fentanyl residue in the cloth seats. They had to get rid of them and go vinyl because it was so deadly to just, secondhand contact. Anyway, they use this for homeless as drug dens and places to get in from the cold. Don't blame them. I would too if I had to. But it's not for 8 million people to get to work. It's 8 million sitting ducks for stuff like this. I am not in favor of it because I've seen how crime increases in the areas it goes to. And the bad guys just hop on it and off of it all day, feeling that, fleeing the crime scene back to Nashville, back to where, Memphis or whatever. So you add psychotic episodes like North Carolina, drugs more potent today than ever, and all this hate, and it's a recipe for a lot of taxpayer dollars spent on more repeat offenders let out on no cash bail 30 times, no bueno. And so I compliment Trump for actually saying that insane asylums need to reopen 4 years after Reagan closed them, his biggest mistake. But also before you were born, like the movie, with Charles Bronson, Death Wish, or real life Bernie Getz or Daniel Penny we talked about, vigilantism, some dudes in a New York subway, we're going to see that. So ironically, Curtis Sowiza is running for mayor of New York City against that communist Muslim guy, and That's his claim to fame. He patrolled the subways of New York, vigilante style, to keep crime like this down. Unfortunately, not in North Carolina. It didn't work. So he should win the election, but I think it's his third or fourth try. So talking about shouldn't they elect, more tough on crime people, yeah, that's a dream. I wish they would.
Yeah, I mean, I talked with members of Congress, and they'll say there's only so much they can do on the federal level, and they're right. And they say, people need to wake up. But I also think, in Republican states, at the very least, we can do stuff on the state level, right, to kind of force some action on these cities. I mean, I saw some of that in Alabama.
Absolutely. The problem is we got the police chiefs that are woke. We've got the mayors that are woke. We've got the city councils that are all into this stuff. We've got the criminal justice system that, looks the other way, from the judges to the prosecutors to the George Soros-funded DAs. The state is supposed to be the place to take care of it because they live in our neighborhoods. That's the way it was supposed to be designed. It's like you don't want to, in the daytime, let a guy off for his 10th murder and then go home and sleep at night where your kids are in school and, you're the 11th. It's supposed to not do that, but they don't seem to do that. I don't know if it's because they live behind gated walls or they make too much. That's why he's fighting the judges about National Guard. We've had a whole bunch of lower court folks like these magistrates that say, no, you can't do it, like as if they're more powerful than the president. So we've gotten ourselves into this big conundrum where the left has embraced crime. The right says they're strong on crime, but I just quoted you from, John Cornyn. He's a big-time senator from Texas. So the federal government can do. That's why he's fighting the judges about National Guard. We've had a whole bunch of lower court folks like these magistrates that say, no, you can't do it, like as if they're more powerful than the president. So we've gotten ourselves into this big conundrum where the left has embraced crime. The right says they're strong on crime, but I just quoted you from, John Cornyn. He's a big-time senator from Texas. So it's a screwed up system, and I just think that they've taken advantage of it for a really long time, and it was always below the surface. You didn't hear about it much. The media certainly wouldn't tell you about it because there was just another day in South Central Los Angeles, another day in South Chicago, another day in Manhattan, 5 people died or whatever. This isn't really that because, like I said, this particular magistrate had a vested interest in him being free versus him being in jail. So how are you supposed to be tough on crime? I'm actually doing an article as we speak about 3 strikes you're outlaw that used to exist in the California good days, or Rudy Giuliani and his broken windows theory. Bust them when they hop the turnstile because they're going to go on to do something way worse later because that's who they are. They're the criminal element. But we seem to have lost that so long ago. We really need to get back to they always say, oh no, Michael, we have a over-incarceration problem. There's too many people thrown in jail for low-level offenses. Guess what? We have an under-incarceration problem by about 50%. So that is actually a lie, statistical lie. And we really need to put people like this either in an insane asylum if they are sick or in jail if they are just murderous. And this guy's family happens to be a crime family from his dad on down that we know of.
Yeah, and I only got about a minute left with you, but I did want to get your reaction. One thing that I've been thinking about, I'm not the only one, but one of the root causes of this problem is you have, we call it the woke left, used to be called political correctness, but sort of this idea pushed on some that, well, they're just victims. Like the criminals are just victims of an evil capitalist society, or, it's an evil racist society. And what we need is systemic change because of systemic racism. So they push DEI, critical race theory, soft on crime policies, cashless bail because all the criminals are just victims. And that's what leads to this, right? And that's why people like you and me exist, to kind of fight back against that narrative.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like to think I exist for more than that. But before you were born, before I was born, actually, 1960s, the Civil Rights Act was passed, and that became the left's new Constitution 2.0. And so all you have to do is look at the grifters that have come out of it since then, from Al Sharpton to Jasmine Crockett to Jesse Jackson to Crump here in Tennessee, like on down. This has become a money grab for them about disparate impact or this or that. And so Obama comes into office and he just blows it up and makes it way worse. And all the money started going towards this. And they combine that with the deinstitutionalization of the asylums, and everybody's on the street. And that's why the homeless population in LA is, off the charts, because they won't arrest. They don't stop the drug dealers. Some of them profit from it. And it's just been this complete nightmare, war on drugs that actually was lost, but we keep fighting. We're like the Japanese in Hiroshima, or not Hiroshima, the island, I can't remember all of a sudden the name, that kept fighting after the war was long over because no one told them. We lost the war on drugs a long time ago, and this is the direct result. And so you got a gal like this Stokes, who is not a lawyer, gets in position of a judge to make a decision, and instead of helping this man so that he doesn't hurt anyone else, she profits off of him. That's a grift. That's what the Democratic Party has become because they're soft on crime, which hurts everybody, not just the victim.
Steve Abramowicz, founder of the Heartland Journal. Read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Steve, I always appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again next week.
God bless America.
My name is State Representative Scott Sapicki, representing the 64th District in the great state of Tennessee. You're listening to the Heartland Journal Podcast.
We're back here on Yaffee Live, Talk Radio 102.3. It is a revolution in common sense here on the Talk Monster, and we're here Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. So you can always check out that revolution in common sense. Joining me on the show right now, as he does every week at this time, is Steve Abramowicz. He's the founder, contributor to the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Also does a lot of opinion pieces for the Tennessee Conservative, so you can read his stuff there at tennesseeconservativenews.com. Steve, how are you today, sir?
I am doing great. It is the end of summer. I'm going to miss it, but how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm going to miss summer too. I'm not a huge winter guy. I'm not a big fan of the cold. I don't know. But so we have to get to the serious news because I have not spoken to you since the assassination against Charlie Kirk happened last week. Did you know him at all? Did you ever meet him?
I met him once, actually, here in Nashville. He was doing a thing for Fox Nation with Pete Hegseth before Pete Hegseth became Secretary of War, I guess we call him now, Secretary of Defense. So, yes, met him. He's a tall guy, very articulate, great guy. But I've read all his books, and I've actually motivated my podcast from him because he was first. And we both have lineage through the Andrew Breitbart legacy, which is what I told everybody when we had our candlelight vigil here in Franklin, Tennessee. About 3,000 people showed up to honor Charlie last Thursday, the day after he was assassinated.
Yeah, I went to the vigil in Walker County, Georgia, and it was interesting to see. You know, most people there. I'm sure it was like this the one you were at. It was like a worship service. I mean, they read verses, they sang hymns, they prayed a lot, and most people there, they really see this not just as him being assassinated for his political views, but also they feel like it's an attack on his faith, on our faith, on Christianity.
That's exactly right, because a lot of people know him from Turning Point USA on campuses, but Turning Point Faith was actually becoming a very strong multi-million-dollar organization, and his best friend is Pastor Rob McCoy, who I also know, from Southern California as a pastor. So he was a very faithful warrior and articulate apologist, we call it, for the Christian faith, and I think that could be what made him the most dangerous.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. I think you are right on that. So, unfortunately, we have people on the extreme left, actually not just the extreme left, many on the mainstream left, kind of trying to smear his legacy. And we can talk about that. But we also do have some, it looks like, on the extreme right, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who want to make this about somehow he was super against Israel or something, which I don't think he was. I mean, obviously he would raise questions on some things about the war, but he was a strong supporter of Israel from what I remember. But what do you think?
He absolutely was, and it's absolutely disgusting. And so what had been happening leading up to Charlie's death is that Tucker and Candace have been carving out this anti-Israel sort of populist clickbait universe. And so I actually have an article coming out tomorrow. Everyone can go see it at heartlandjournal.com. And it's about this very thing. I call it Tickle the Algorithm. It's the whole TikTok social media business model. So TikTok just got bought in the U.S. by Oracle. Congress passed last year they had to get out of the country because it was owned by China, a company called ByteDance, but instead they came up with this 80% deal where Oracle now owns it mostly. And they love this because they get paid for clicks and views, right? So nobody really cares about what they're saying. It's did people listen and did the cash register ring today, which is gross. But what do is you wake up in the morning and maybe you do this sometimes too. I do it for my show. You look at what's trending on X and then you start making your content because that's what people sort of democratically want to hear about. Well, guess what? It's all good if it's some miracle diet or a cat dancing video, but when it's your friend, like Candace says Charlie Kirk is, and you start blaming Israel and the Jews for his murder with zero evidence, you're dancing on his grave while tickling the algorithm to get paid. That's pretty gross, and that's taking it, if it bleeds, it leads into a whole nother level because it's not news, it's opinion or influence. And if she's doing it not to praise her friend, but to go viral and raise money to offset her lawsuit against the Prime Minister of France's wife that she slandered, then it's just evil.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think you're right. A lot of this is fueled by what you said, tickle the algorithm. Do you think that's what fuels a lot of the division overall in our country?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I don't know her heart. I know she is a Catholic woman now, but I do know she's not insane, right? Like Britney Spears isn't insane, but she's not making music anymore or going on tour or a Vegas residency. So why not dance in your underwear on TikTok with knives, get everyone worried about you, and, cha-ching, cha-ching, you're ringing the cash register, money for nothing when, it's not, she's not insane. I don't think Candace Owens is insane. I think she's very articulate, very smart. She knows exactly what she's doing, but there's another element. Hopefully we have time to talk about it. I'm calling this Game of Thrones. This is a power grab, a money grab for millions of dollars as well as millions of followers that Turning Point USA spent Charlie's lifetime, since age 17 to 31 when he was killed, building, and it doesn't just disappear. The same thing happened when Andrew Breitbart died, and out comes Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Steve Bannon. A lot of influencers that we know to this day came out of that vein. And so I see this. These folks, Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, are like vultures circling over this corpse of Turning Point USA because the money and the followers are still there. They need somewhere to go. This happened, by the way, when MLK died, before you were born, and Jesse Jackson stepped into the breach and took it over. And his motivation was a lot different than the civil rights leader of our time, my time. He was very money motivated and basically created the shakedowns of corporations and all the stuff that we're dealing with now called DEI. So long story short, there's business here too, not just grieving the memory of your lost friend who's a Christian as well, or Jew in Ben Shapiro's case.
Okay. I mean, I haven't seen Ben Shapiro post anything bad about this.
No, not bad. He gave $1 million donation to Turning Point USA. It's not bad. He is trying to take the crown of Charlie that is now on the floor, just like in Game of Thrones. Neither one of them are the perfect candidates. Candace can't do it, and Ben can't do it. He's not Christian, number one, and he had such a huge problem with them. But they're going to try because Daily Wire has been hurting quite a bit. They've had layoffs. They've had to fire a bunch of people because the former CEO got into movies instead of news, et cetera, et cetera. So what they're doing is they're claiming the mantle of conservatism.
Interesting. Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, founder of the Heartland Journal. So how do we fix, is there really any way to fix this problem, the division caused by social media?
Oh, no. I mean, if they would have gone with the law that the Senate also passed and got rid of TikTok, and we start, cleaning it up and take phones out of schools and say kids can't do this until you're 18 or this, that, or the other thing, but then you get into the whole free speech thing and so whatever. So the genie's out of the bag. You can, I guess, complain about it like I do in my columns, but really no. I mean, especially when we're talking about conservatism, which is constitutional rights and faith, those are protected under the Constitution. You can say whatever you want. Candace Owens wants to say that Charlie Kirk was, demon possessed. She can, but that doesn't mean he was. And so the theory is now, where will the young people looking for leaders and guidance go? The ones who are following MLK to civil rights nirvana that we achieved for 5 seconds, they looked to the next guy, and it was Jesse Jackson. He had different motives. So if they end up looking to Candace, maybe because of her Blexit and all that, okay, they'll splinter. But this is all part of we always want our parties to be divided so they don't actually win at the ballot box. And we've got midterms coming up right now soon, and none of the Democrats want Turning Point USA to be successful. So This plays right into their game. It's pretty terrible. And then you can start thinking like, well, if they all knew this ahead of time, maybe there's motive here too. Maybe that's why the guy decided to shoot him. We don't know anything, but we do know that there's millions of dollars in a bank account just sitting there. And Erica, his wife, God bless her heart, I don't know if she's as charismatic and faithful as he was to lead the next generation of conservative thinkers from Turning Point USA. We will find out. But I'll tell you this, Steve Bannon and even Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro coming out of Andrew Breitbart were not, because, well, Daily Wire is nowhere near as successful as Breitbart.com was.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, founder of the Heartland Journal. Kind of want to move on to another topic I know you wanted to get to. It's definitely an issue here in Chattanooga as well, because property taxes. You've seen Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida, other places as well, kind of want to get rid of property taxes because they just fluctuate so much. They've gone up so much in recent years. Tennessee has a state law where it has to be lowered based on new assessments, but then, so they were lowered here in Chattanooga, these property taxes, and then the mayor, city council came up and raised them up more a little bit. So what do you want to talk about in terms of that?
Well, I'll tell you the trick, and I'll tell you the game that's being played. And the first governor in America to do away with property taxes will be a hero to the next generation of kids coming out of college forever, like Ronald Reagan winning the Cold War so they could come out of school into peacetime, go to work, earn a living, raise a family, and buy an affordable home. We don't have that American dream right now, most because of inflation, not supply shortage, which we both know, you and I, and your listeners, because you say it all the time, inflation is because of government spending. So not just out of D.C., you can't have property tax cuts without local spending cuts. Government has grown too much. Tennessee budget has doubled in the last few years, and population has grown with California folks moving in here like me, but not 100%. The budget has. We'd be 14 million people if it did, and that would be a housing shortage for sure, but no builders have, kept up with that. So, and they got illegal immigration, but the spending has been outrageous, and not on infrastructure that's needed, but social stuff. So here's the trick. The assessor floated a proposal to reassess every year, basically go on Zillow, hit refresh, and send in a % of the value every year. Well, guess what? My house isn't a stock and it's not for sale. So what's to say I don't, in desperation, sell it for $200,000? That's what I need to get by. So my neighbor may be worth $2 million, but who knows, right? Not for sale, not true value. So assessors, what are they talking about? So why does the state get to arbitrarily tell someone who's retired we're taxing it at $2 million, even though you bought it 150 years ago from your granddad for $2,000? But as most homeowners know, the purchase price is just the start, right? Now they move, a data center next door and your electricity bill doubles, or too many new neighbors over 150 years in that farm up the road, so your water bill doubles. And here's the worst one. Your $200,000 house isn't assessed for insurance at $200,000, it's at $2 million. So the widow on a fixed income gets to insure their roof from hail and Tornado Alley or floods like North Carolina after Helene, which nobody did. So taxes and insurance, bounce you out. And here comes a multi-unit high-rise on your family farm that rents to a big company, and now you, I guess. So you work for them. Makes the insurance company rich. The banks get to lend more on a higher loan-to-value. American dream has never been cheap, and it isn't getting any cheaper. So the first governor who says, I'll do away with property taxes, will be able to make housing affordable again, maybe Florida, maybe Texas, maybe Tennessee, who knows? And those kids who want to raise a family and can afford it will forever love that man or woman. And maybe it'll be Marsha Blackburn, maybe it'll be Greg Abbott, we don't know. But it's long overdue, because when I go to the grocery store and I buy, a sandwich, if I put it in the refrigerator and I keep it for a week, I don't pay taxes every day I own it. I only pay once when I buy it and maybe when I sell it. That's exactly what should happen with houses. But somehow or another, state said, oh, no, we need to raise it with inflation to spend money on stuff that you don't actually use. It used to be just schools, fire department, police. Fine, put a line item on your bill. They don't do that. They spend it on all kinds of crazy stuff, or say they're going to spend it on that stuff and don't. I saw that in California. The money went somewhere else because it's fungible. Long story short, I came to Tennessee saying we got to cap those rates because they're outrageous. And sure enough, places like Chattanooga double, 50%, Tennessee 50% Nashville over 2 years, Memphis, same thing. People leave. They can't afford that. But they didn't listen. Then all of a sudden somebody came around and said, hey, we got a revolutionary idea. Let's just do away with property taxes totally. You don't own your house. Let's do that. Okay. Oh, that's even better.
Well, I'm with you there. I'm sad it's only happening in Florida because they call for it. If we could have some leadership here that calls for it as well, maybe Marsha Blackburn will. That'd be awesome. Steve Abramowicz, really appreciate you coming on. As always, we'll talk to you again in the future.
Adios, amigo.
I'm Monica Page with One America News, and you're listening to the Heartland Journal Podcast.
We're back here on Yaffee Live Talk Radio 102.3. Glad you're joining the show today. Of course, we're on 1 to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday on the Talk Monster. And if you miss any of the show live, the podcast is always on the website, WGOW.com. And it's Wednesday, so at this time every Wednesday, we speak with Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder, contributor of the Heartland Journal, which you can read at heartlandjournal.com. Check out the podcast there as well. It's out of Nashville. Steve, how are you today, sir?
Awesome. Wednesday, one of my favorite days. Get to spend time with you. And one of these days, man, I promise, I look forward to it. We will get to talk about happy things. 90% of my show are happy things. I swear, listeners who've never heard me before.
Today, unfortunately, it's just not one of those days. I started the show today. I'm like, unfortunately, it's another one of those days. I have to talk about something pretty awful, but that is the latest news. I'll get your reaction. We have 2 people dead. Both were detainees, but the evidence suggests that the shooter was an anti-ICE person who was on the bullets. What do you think about all this?
How long is your show? 3 hours?
2 hours, yeah. You have to wrap it up here a little bit sooner than that, but yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I really would need the full 2 hours to go through them all, but here's one example. Okay, so a young man by the name of David Chong heads a group called People's Forum. You can see it for yourself, peoplesforum.org and People's Forum NYC on X, just outed for making money, good money, to be a protester, like a full-time job, more than most full-time jobs pay. So he was arrested this week outside an event. He was let out immediately, which makes you wonder why the cops even bothered to arrest him. The guy hates cops. He's wearing a T-shirt with Tupac's mom, who killed a cop herself and ran to communist Cuba to exile and hide out. So anyway, another group, they're all connected these days, Rise and Resist, gets money from ActBlue, all documented, not making it up. Left-wing donor money recycled into terrorists. Rise and Resist, like rinse and repeat. They've got websites open to the public. Here's one right here on my computer, 7 steps to stop ICE. So they're advertising for money, no-go zones for federal forces to scare police. One guy, Roy Singh, is a Marxist communist billionaire. That's right, a communist billionaire. Didn't even know there was such a thing or how that can happen. But Jim Jordan and the House Oversight Committee found his CCP ties. So he has this education fund. Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Michigan, where Dearborn, Michigan is a hot spot. Because we all know the name Soros and Bill Gates, but Singh, he may be worse when it comes to funding kinetic terrorism, not just old ladies holding signs anymore. So back real quick to David Chong, $75,000 a year to protest and organize terror in New York City. That isn't activism or community organizing, they called it. It's how foreign powers wage war on Americans without firing a shot until they do. Like Dallas today. ICE detained a guy, Marwan Maroof, a top Dallas leader of the Muslim American Society. He's a brother-in-law of the Alashi family, which was convicted in the Holy Land Foundation's $12 million Hamas financing case. So these are real documented things. So what happens today? 3 cops get shot by a sniper in Dallas that ends up killing himself like a suicide bomber would, only he has a high-powered weapon. And his arrest is a direct strike on the Brotherhood's Hamas network in Texas. Meanwhile, all night long, outside a hotel housing ICE agents in Boston last night, you got them blaring music, banging drums, causing mayhem. I guess they don't have day jobs, right? Because they could do that all night long, but it's pretty obvious they're bust-in paid protesters.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty supportive then. President Trump designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Sounds like you support it.
Oh my gosh, I've been calling for it since I was in the Chop Jazz zone back in Seattle before I moved to Tennessee. I mean, these guys have been underestimated for over a decade and a half. I've written articles about it, and how do I know that the guy in Dallas, it's retaliation for that imam being arrested? Name's Joshua John. He's a radical shooter, allegedly was a Democrat, had communist posts on his now deleted Facebook page, and radical, Imam Omar Solman rushed to defend Maruf, accusing ICE of abducting him, calling him the heart of our community and vowing mobilization. So they're all connected. Dallas has been ground zero for Hamas. The media calls him beloved community leader, just like Portland's ICE facility over 100-day siege now, sniper that kills 2, Gavin Newsom and Jasmine Crockett all on TV calling Tom Homan Gestapo. So here we are. These aren't my words. VP candidate and governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, called the modern-day Gestapo, right? So the ICE apparently are the enemy. Did you even know that there's like 60,000 employees of CBP, 20,000 ICE agents? Trump wants 10,000 more. That's nothing. Imagine how many, if you add up all of these cities that I just listed and the rest of them, they're overwhelmed by these paid Antifa protesters. It's outrageous.
Well, and I was going to mention, I played it earlier on in the show. You don't even have to look at the organizations like you're talking about. You don't even have to look at, say, Gavin Newsom. I played a clip. It was like a minute, 2 minutes long almost, of just MSNBC contributor, one after the other calling ICE Gestapo. And that's what they're, legit, Gestapo. They're like Nazis. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, Gavin Newsom was on Colbert last night here in the heat of this whole Jimmy Kimmel thing for not, being nice to Erica Kirk. And they're just soulless. And he's called Trump an authoritarian government. This is a man who's been shot at twice, shot in the ear one time. We had Charlie Kirk dead. They just won't turn down the heat. Hillary Clinton was on this morning saying the same thing. She was the woman who would be queen, saying off with their head if I would have only known that I could just call, the FCC and have somebody fired. Like, well, no, you couldn't because you were never president, so you couldn't do that. But interesting comment, in the time when somebody just got shot in the head. So every Democrat politician in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, those are the border states, and they've all been talking about how the border patrol is terrible. But here's the problem. You asked me this question. Trump wants 10,000 more agents, including 3,000 for the border. That's not a lot. But there are all these precedents of like $650,000 worth of cocaine seized from smugglers along the Arizona border that ends up getting sold by a guy on duty and driving an official Border Patrol vehicle. So are we going to be getting the good guys or the cops that look the other way? That's a problem. They were also complaining about Trump blowing up these boats from these narco terrorists shipping drugs in out there in the ocean, which is, by the way, still part of the war on terror and the war on drugs. He can do it. But you got Chuck Schumer out here saying, oh, no, we have to push for gun control because I don't know what happened in Dallas, but whatever it was, there was a gun involved. If we just get all the guns off the streets, we'll be safe and sound. Well, he's got like $100 million worth of security all around him every day.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, he is the founder of the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. You had mentioned Jimmy Kimmel there, and I haven't had a chance to play it yet. So I'm going to play the audio here and get your reaction of Jimmy Kimmel's quote-unquote apology. Now, I have to say, it was better than I was expecting, to be honest. I wasn't expecting anything. So, I thought maybe he would apologize and then immediately call for gun control. But I'm going to play it here and get your reaction. This was Jimmy Kimmel last night.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger. I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on politics at all. I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever.
So what do you think, Steve?
I apologize, and if you don't forgive me and give me my job back, you ain't Christian. I mean, no, it's not an apology. What he should really do is bring Erica Kirk on his show and talk about it so that he can actually see what forgiveness is really all about, because he has done this before, and he was very gleeful back in the day. If you remember, when cancel culture was knocking people off right and left, Steve Bannon ends up in jail. Navarro ends up in jail. Trump, they tried to put him in jail for these fake mortgage things. Like, he wasn't all that contrite then, but then it all of a sudden hits him in the face, and his $16 million job is at risk. And he comes back and says, hey, forgive me. And by the way, Hillary Clinton today, when I was making that comment earlier, she was blaming Trump for getting him fired. That's not how it went down. Sinclair, who owns stations, they said, we don't want anything to do with this guy. He's such a jerk and has been for decades. Disney caved and said, okay, we'll put you back on. They don't have any control over the affiliates, as you know, being in this business.
Right.
So I think it's ridiculous. I think if he really wanted to be kind-hearted and ask for forgiveness, fake tears don't do it. And those were about as fake as they come. He's not going to be winning any Academy Awards anytime soon. He should have Erica Church or write a big $1 million check to Turning Point USA and say, yeah, I'm really sorry. Here's my money talking for me.
I will say he complimented her. I mean, that's something. The fact that Erica Kirk's, message was so powerful that even he had to say, look, that is a great message. I mean,
because she has more followers than he does. Like, his ratings are in the tank in the 18 to 24 demographic. She's got, millions now and 60,000 new affiliates that want to be in every high school in the country. Oklahoma just said every one of their high schools is going to have a Turning Point USA chapter. That's success.
Yeah.
He just got fired and then, reinstated because Disney caved to the mob. But, and by the way, there was a shooting. We were just talking about all these.
Yeah, an ABC affiliate place. Yep.
In Oregon, and that's what they really caved to, not because Jimmy is such a contrite, wonderful comedian that everybody loves and wants to hear more from. In the wake of Colbert also being fired and having like 18 months left until his contract is over. So that's really what it was. Contract negotiations. He could say what he has to say or what somebody wrote for him. I think he's got 16 writers, but I don't buy it. Do you? I mean, look at his past situation. He literally clapped and told people that weren't vaccinated if they go to the emergency room, goodbye, Wheezy. Like, what kind of soul is that? What kind of heart is that? He called himself a believer last night. Yeah, believers don't talk like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how sincere he is. I do agree with you that, this is the time where he's like, oh, I don't believe this shooter had any motivations. He's just a deranged person. But I'm thinking, if there was proof out there that this guy was like MAGA, like, well, let's say it was a MAGA guy who shot an activist on the left, I guarantee you he would be complaining about the right forever on his show. That would have been his reaction.
Michael, he literally lied. He went onto his thing. He's got 15 writers, he's got editors. They don't even, it's not live. They record it. And so they went through all those filters and literally came out and lied and said that was MAGA killing their own when they shot Charlie Kirk. And we all knew that was not the case. We knew the guy liked furries. We knew the guy had, come from a family of Republicans, but he was the black sheep of the family, so to speak, and blah, 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 but had nothing to do with MAGA. Even the writings on his casings, which they're now blaming the shooter in Dallas, say he had writings in his casings against ICE. So he literally lied, and now he's trying to come back and to say, hey, I didn't really mean it. It was a joke. Well, I know a comedian named Rob Schneider who literally said it wasn't even in the form of a joke, and he's a professional comedian too. So you're lying again about your lying. That's what they do. He didn't write it. It didn't come from the heart. It didn't come from the soul. He literally said what he was told to say and agreed with it, as did all the editors leading up to the moment he spoke the words.
I was going to say, He said last night that there's like 100 people that work there or something. I was like, what do they all do? Like 100 people? Like, they work for that show? I mean, how is that even possible?
And not one of them said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be mean to Charlie Kirk 48 hours after the dude got his head popped off. Like, that's kind of a thought you should have.
I agree with that.
Having to come and ask for apologies. So the whole thing is ridiculous. And yes, I mean, I have one person on staff, me. I don't know how, I think you have two, Max and you. But the bottom line is, like, if you're going to be a professional and you're going to go out there and you're going to talk to 1 million people a night, 2 million people a night, whatever, you have a responsibility, especially on the public airwaves. He's not cable. He's not Bill Maher. He's not Howard Stern on Sirius Satellite, where you can say crazy things and it's okay and drop F-bombs or whatever. Those are public airwaves, and there are decency laws, and he broke them. And what's unique about this is he was actually dismissed. That's the way it should have been in the old days. But for the last 15 years, these guys have gotten a huge pass. And Colbert came from cable, right?
Yeah.
He was on Comedy Central. So he was just using that sort of model for a long, long time. And now finally they said, you know what, enough's enough. Decency's back in town. And that has a lot to do with FCC Chairman Carr and Trump putting him there to say, hey, we're not going to play by those new rules anymore. We're going to go back to the old rules of the Johnny Carson days and the Johnny Cash days, where you cannot say these words and be happy about somebody getting killed.
Steve Abramowicz, we are out of time. Really appreciate you coming on the show, though. I know you'll talk a lot more about this on your podcast, which people can find at heartlandjournal.com. Steve, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey there, it's Natasha Owens, and you are listening to the Heartland Journal Podcast.
We're back here on Yaffee Live. It's a revolution in common sense on the Talk Monster. Some people weighing in on the text monster. I was asking if they've noticed any changes because of the government shutdown. One person said they just came through the Chickamauga battlefield, drove through there, said everything looked normal, and even saw a park ranger driving through. So they haven't closed the roads to that park yet, at least as I've heard. Who knows? When it comes to the government, who knows what's possible?
I don't think they'd lie to us.
Yeah, I know. By the way, it's no lie. Right now, you could win $1,000. That's right. If you text the keyword to 95819, have a chance to win $1,000. It's our nationwide contest, $1,000 in your hand. So the keyword right now is money. MONEY, money. Makes sense. You want to win some money?
That's my keyword, too.
Text money to 95819. Do not text me or the text monster. Text money to 95819. Good luck on that. Joining me on the show right now, Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder, contributor to the Heartland Journal. He's out of Nashville. You can read that at heartlandjournal.com. Steve, how are you today, sir?
I am great. Did I win $1,000?
No.
Oh.
You're calling. It's got to be a text thing. I'm sorry.
Like the old concert ticket days. I had to be the first caller.
Oh man. So what do you think about the shutdown? You freaking out? Very concerned?
I didn't realize it was Friday. You know, the government shuts down every weekend.
Oh,
so
that's
I've
true.
never really missed them even then. So, it's this kabuki theater that they do. Did you know, by the way, I guess we should just spell it out because not everybody's aware, congressmen, they get paid during a shutdown. There is no stop to their mandatory payment because of Article 1, Section 6 of the U.S. Constitution says they have to. It's called mandatory spending, so they don't really care.
Oh. I didn't know that. It's interesting. I thought maybe they would be kind of back pay as well, but no, you're saying it just keeps on going.
There's been an effort to change that law, which I think are long overdue, but nope, 27th Amendment, they get paid whether they show up to work or not, but the military doesn't. If it goes on too long, Social Security checks will stop. So for my whole life, and I'm a little bit older than you, as I say every Wednesday, unfortunately, they've called this, the Republicans shutting down government so that those Social Security payments and mandatory Medicaid payments won't go out. But this time it's the Schumer shutdown copyright. They own this one because they literally voted not to keep the government open yesterday. The Democrats did. So they go on the news today and tell everybody, it's those dirty Republicans' fault again. And those who know better say, not this time. It's the Schumer shutdown. Own it.
Well, yeah, and, just in case people don't know, Republicans basically just put forward a continuing resolution. It passed the House, but in order for it to pass completely, it's got to get over 60 votes in the Senate, which was not possible, even though a couple of Democrats did vote with the Republicans. But Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and others, they don't want to just keep spending going. They want to add they want to return a bunch of subsidies to Obamacare and everything else, right?
Not just that, they want $1.5 trillion to go to illegal immigrants for their health care, which is really non-negotiable. J.D. Vance was out there saying no. So I don't even know how they're going to win this unless they want to completely lose face and say, okay, forget that part, which will make all of their coming up for the midterms quasi illegal, undocumented, whatever you want to call them, voters very angry, especially since they'll be gone. Or they somehow get the Republicans to vote with them to pass it. It's a stalemate big time. And so they would rather yell about Donald Trump posting an AI image of Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero than actually sit down and talk to each other and get things done. So we've got a good old-fashioned standoff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, one, you had mentioned J.D. Vance. He's speaking right now on this. He's been a pretty effective communicator on this. And one thing he keeps saying, which I think is a pretty good argument, is that, look, you can have a debate over healthcare policy, but this is not the time to do it. You debate those things and the appropriations bills and all of that stuff, but to just force it right now doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's right. I mean, they're being very bad actors. They're basically trying to hold the government hostage by saying either give us this huge amount of money for illegal aliens to get health care or shut down the government. And Trump said, and I guess J.D. Vance on his team said, okay, we'll shut down the government because we're not doing that in the era of Doge. And this is that reconciliation package, right? So we have an election going on. Early voting ends tomorrow where I live in Williamson County, Tennessee. And the person who wins that for the Republican side gets to get on an airplane, go back to D.C. and vote on this bill, and then come right back and run for re-election because he's filling a seat for somebody who quit. So the Congress just has to sit back and say, I don't know what to do. The Senate is doing this brinksmanship and obviously just failed. 300,000 people, I was told, are going to be let off of the government during this that actually will not get paid, literally filing, which is what Trump wanted all along. And again, of course, all those Doge cuts, they don't even have the Doge cuts on the debt clock anymore because we're approaching $50 trillion. That is not a good thing. So I'm all for shutting down the government. The only problem is spending doesn't stop yet. If it goes on too long, it will, but that's not going to happen.
So yeah, what's your prediction? What do you think ends up happening in the long run here?
The long run, we're all dead. That's what John Maynard Keynes said. But
True, good point. Yes, but do you think Schumer ends up caving or what?
I think he has to. I think he put himself into a real trap. I think the Congress is going to start yelling and screaming because they're the ones that are the most affected next year at the midterm elections. And so the Senate, like I said, they get paid and they're doing this. But it's not right. Like if you don't remember, but when Clinton was president, they did this shutdown and it was the middle of winter. Everyone went home for Christmas anyway. They all got paid. It was like an early vacation. They negotiated something and then they all got it. I don't even remember what it was over. And it was all resolved and everybody came back to work and they got back pay and it was like it never happened before. But they were able to blame it on the Republican Congress. This time, like I said, it's on Chuck, and I don't think he has the negotiations. Now, here's what happens in the long term. Like you said, I was being facetious, but it really is true. Every day we're paying interest. Every year we're paying over $1 trillion now in interest, which is almost as big as the Social Security budget, which is mandatory as well. The cuts that are going to come from this are actually a very good thing because those 300,000 people that are not going to have jobs to go back to in D.C. means they're not going to have pensions, they're not going to have hourly wages, they're not going to have salaries. That stinks. They'll lose their apartments, they'll lose their car leases, whatever. I don't like that. But they're going to have to go get real jobs in a not-so-great economy because the government can't afford them anyway. $50 trillion? Are you kidding me? That is just way too much. And like I said, it's compounding every day with that interest rate. So which is higher now than it was 2 years ago by about double. So we're paying twice as much interest as we used to. So I think Chuck Schumer is going to have to blink. He's never been the A-team. He was not a Mitch McConnell type of leader or even a Nancy Pelosi type in the Congress who could keep all of these people together. You've got AOC from New York out there basically saying, come negotiate with me. You don't have to talk. And she's a congresswoman. How do you negotiate from the Senate to the Congress about this? So she's literally going over his head. And I just think he looks terrible. I don't know if you ever saw that picture of him 4th of July barbecue where he had the cheese on top of the raw hamburger and he hadn't flipped it over yet.
I did see that.
Right?
Yeah, that
says it all. That kind of guy, it reminds me of Jimmy Carter getting chased by that killer rabbit with a oar. You don't know about that. You can Google it. Your listeners, if they're young, can go look on YouTube. It's hilarious because he was such a feckless leader that a rabbit could chase him down a river. Well, Chuck is so hopeless at his job, he can't flip a hamburger, which, he would say, oh, if you can't be a congressman, go work at McDonald's and flip burgers. He couldn't do that. And by the way, he became a senator right out of junior college, so it's not like he's ever had a real job. So money that keeps them stipend doesn't stop. But for you and I and the rest of us, it can add up if they keep it up too long. So he'll blink. He can't afford to lose guys in the midterms.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, he's the founder of the Heartland Journal. You had mentioned you voted in that primary. Are you going to come out and endorse someone? Who'd you vote for? This is the one to replace Mark Green.
I voted for a Republican, I tell you that much.
You're not going to tell us? Come on, you're a public guy. Yeah, I need your endorsement out here. No, you're not going to keep it a secret ballot, I guess.
Well, I've had 3 of the 4 front runners on my show. I've had a guy named Stuart Parks, Gino Bolso, Jody Barrett, and 1, 2, 3. Oh no, Lee Reeves hasn't been on my show. He's a neighbor of mine. But I would say that if I was going to be true to my show and to the MAGA conservative constitutional Republican thing, it would be between 2. Gino Bolso, Jody Barrett. And who's the one that I think is going to win? Jody Barrett.
Yeah, I could see that. Although Van Epps is getting all the endorsements from like Bill Lee and others, right?
He did, but a funny thing happened on the way to the polls. Dr. Mark Green's wife endorsed Jody Barrett.
For real?
And
I didn't know that.
The story.
Oh, okay.
You can see it on my Twitter. But if you didn't know this story, the reason why this election is even happening is because Mark Green quit.
Right.
And it had a lot to do with some marital issues. So the fact that she chose somebody other than he chose says a lot about a jilted woman. You don't want to make ex-wives mad.
I understand that. So I did want to talk to you real quick. I know you got a festival that you're hosting pretty soon.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So next Saturday, if anyone finds themselves near Nashville, we are hosting the 10th annual Gideon Film Festival, which I was honored to be asked to host some panels about the industry, but it is a one-of-a-kind, generational, inspired, Christian-based kingdom movie-telling, storytelling event. And it is next Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And you can go to the website, and it will be at National Film Institute, 191 Polk Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, a week from Saturday. Well, a week from Friday, October 10th through 12th. You can get tickets at filmfreeway.com/Gideon Film Festival. And I hope to see you there. I'd shake your hand.
You're going to put out some of that info on your website, heartlandjournal.com?
Oh, yes.
Good.
You betcha. And Twitter. Don't forget my Twitter.
Well, what is your Twitter handle?
Heartland Journal.
Okay. The audience doesn't know that. You got to tell them. Steve Abramowicz.
You know it. You follow it. That's how you get your ideas on what to ask me.
Yep. Steve Abramowicz is the founder of the Heartland Journal. Read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Follow him on social media as well. Steve, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Wake me up when they get back to work.
Okay. You might be sleeping for a bit there.
My name is C. Richard Archie. I am the West Tennessee Director of the Tennessee Firearms Association, and I'm live on the Heartland Journal Podcast.
Joining me on the show right now, Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder, contributor to the Heartland Journal. He's out of Nashville. You can read that at heartlandjournal.com. Steve, how are you today, sir?
I am great. Did I win $1,000?
No.
Oh.
You're calling. It's got to be a text thing. I'm sorry.
Like the old concert ticket days. I had to be the first caller.
Oh, man. So what do you think about the shutdown? You freaking out? Very concerned?
I didn't realize it was Friday. You know, the government shuts down every weekend.
Oh,
so
that's
I've
true.
never really missed them even then. So, it's this kabuki theater that they do. Did you know, by the way, I guess we should just spell it out because not everybody's aware, congressmen, they get paid during a shutdown. There is no stop to their mandatory payment because of Article 1, Section 6 of the U.S. Constitution says they have to. It's called mandatory spending, so they don't really care.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's interesting. I thought maybe they would be kind of back pay as well, but no, you're saying it just keeps on going.
There's been efforts to change that law, which I think are long overdue, but nope, 27th Amendment, they get paid whether they show up to work or not, but the military doesn't. If it goes on too long, Social Security checks will stop. So for my whole life, and I'm a little bit older than you, as I say every Wednesday, unfortunately, they've called this, the Republicans shutting down government so that those Social Security payments and mandatory Medicaid payments won't go out. But this time it's the Schumer shutdown copyright. They own this one because they literally voted not to keep the government open yesterday. The Democrats did. So they go on the news today and tell everybody it's those dirty Republicans' fault again. And those who know better say, not this time. It's the Schumer shutdown. Own it.
Well, yeah, and, just in case people don't know, Republicans basically just put forward a continuing resolution. It passed the House, but in order for it to pass completely, it's got to get over 60 votes in the Senate, which was not possible, even though a couple of Democrats did vote with Republicans. But Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and others, they don't want to just keep spending going. They want to add they want to return a bunch of subsidies to Obamacare and everything else, right?
Not just that, they want $1.5 trillion to go to illegal immigrants for their health care, which is really non-negotiable. J.D. Vance was out there saying no. So I don't even know how they're going to win this unless they want to completely lose face and say, okay, forget that part, which will make all of their coming up for the midterms quasi illegal, undocumented, whatever you want to call them, voters very angry, especially since they'll be gone. Or they somehow get the Republicans to vote with them to pass it. It's a stalemate big time. And so they would rather yell about Donald Trump posting an AI image of Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero than actually sit down and talk to each other and get things done. So we've got a good old-fashioned standoff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, one, you had mentioned J.D. Vance. He's speaking right now on this. He's been a pretty effective communicator on this. And one thing he keeps saying, which I think is a pretty good argument, is that, look, you can have a debate over healthcare policy, but this is not the time to do it. You debate those things and the appropriations bills and all of that stuff, but to just force it right now doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's right. I mean, they're being very bad actors. They're basically trying to hold the government hostage by saying either give us this huge amount of money for illegal aliens to get health care or shut down the government. And Trump said, and I guess J.D. Vance on his team said, okay, we'll shut down the government because we're not doing that in the era of Doge. And this is that reconciliation package, right? So we have an election going on. Early voting ends tomorrow where I live in Williamson County, Tennessee. And the person who wins that for the Republican side gets to get on an airplane, go back to D.C. and vote on this bill and then come right back and run for re-election because he's filling a seat for somebody who quit. So the Congress just has to sit back and say, I don't know what to do. The Senate is doing this brinksmanship and obviously just failed. 300,000 people, I was told, are going to be let off of the government during this that actually will not get paid, literally filing, which is what Trump wanted all along. And again, of course, all those Doge cuts, they don't even have the Doge cuts on the debt clock anymore because we're approaching $50 trillion. That is not a good thing. So I'm all for shutting down the government. The only problem is spending doesn't stop yet. If it goes on too long, it will, but that's not going to happen.
So yeah, what's your prediction? What do you think ends up happening in the long run here?
The long run, we're all dead. That's what John Maynard Keynes said. But
True, good point. Yes, but do you think Schumer ends up caving or what?
I think he has to. I think he put himself into a real trap. I think the Congress is going to start yelling and screaming because they're the ones that are the most affected next year at the midterm elections. And so the Senate, like I said, they get paid and they're doing this. But it's not right. Like if you don't remember, but when Clinton was president, they did this shutdown and it was the middle of winter. Everyone went home for Christmas anyway. They all got paid. It was like an early vacation. They negotiated something and then they all got it. I don't even remember what it was over. And it was all resolved and everybody came back to work and they got back pay and it was like it never happened before. But they were able to blame it on the Republican Congress. This time, like I said, it's on Chuck, and I don't think he has the negotiations. Now, here's what happens in the long term. Like you said, I was being facetious, but it really is true. Every day we're paying interest. Every year we're paying over $1 trillion now in interest, which is almost as big as the Social Security budget, which is mandatory as well. The cuts that are going to come from this are actually a very good thing because those 300,000 people that are not going to have jobs to go back to in D.C. means they're not going to have pensions, they're not going to have hourly wages, they're not going to have salaries. That stinks. They'll lose their apartments, they'll lose their car leases, whatever. I don't like that. But they're going to have to go get real jobs in a not-so-great economy because the government can't afford them anyway. $50 trillion? Are you kidding me? That is just way too much. And like I said, it's compounding every day with that interest rate, so which is higher now than it was 2 years ago by about double. So we're paying twice as much interest as we used to. So I think Chuck Schumer is going to have to blink. He's never been the A-team. He was not a Mitch McConnell type of leader or even a Nancy Pelosi type in the Congress who could keep all of these people together. You've got AOC from New York out there basically saying, come negotiate with me. You don't have to talk. And she's a congresswoman. How do you negotiate from the Senate to the Congress about this? So she's literally going over his head, and I just think he looks terrible. I don't know if you ever saw that picture of him 4th of July barbecue where he had the cheese on top of the raw hamburger and he hadn't flipped it over it.
I did see that.
Right?
Yeah, that
says it all. That kind of guy, it reminds me of Jimmy Carter getting chased by that killer rabbit with an oar. You don't know about that. You can Google it. Your listeners, if they're young, can go look on YouTube. It's hilarious because he was such a feckless leader that a rabbit could chase him down a river. Well, Chuck is so hopeless at his job, he can't flip a hamburger, which, he would say, oh, if you can't be a congressman, go work at McDonald's and flip burgers. He couldn't do that. And by the way, he became a senator right out of junior college, so it's not like he's ever had a real job. So money that keeps them stipend doesn't stop. But for you and I and the rest of us, it can add up if they keep it up too long. So he'll blink. He can't afford to lose guys in the midterms.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, he's the founder of the Heartland Journal. You had mentioned you voted in that primary. Are you going to come out and endorse someone? Who'd you vote for? This is the one to replace Mark Green.
I voted for a Republican. I tell you that much.
You're not going to tell us? Come on, you're a public guy. Yeah, I need your endorsement out here. No, you're not going to keep it a secret ballot, I guess.
Well, I've had 3 of the 4 front runners on my show. I've had a guy named Stuart Parks, Gino Bolso, Jody Barrett, and 1, 2, 3. Oh no, Lee Reeves hasn't been on my show. He's a neighbor of mine. But I would say that if I was going to be true to my show and to the MAGA conservative constitutional Republican thing, it would be between 2. Gino Bolso, Jody Barrett. And who's the one that I think is going to win? Jody Barrett.
Yeah, I could see that. Although Van Epps is getting all the endorsements from like Bill Lee and others, right?
He did, but a funny thing happened on the way to the polls. Dr. Mark Green's wife endorsed Jody Barrett.
For real?
And
I didn't know that.
The story.
Oh, okay.
You can see it on my Twitter. But if you didn't know this story, the reason why this election is even happening is because Mark Green quit.
Right.
And it had a lot to do with some marital issues. So the fact that she chose somebody other than he chose says a lot about a jilted woman. You don't want to make ex-wives mad.
I understand that. So I did want to talk to you real quick. I know you got a festival that you're hosting pretty soon.
Saturday's the big day, everybody. Gideon Film Festival at the Nashville Film Institute in Tennessee, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Christian-based film festival. I've got some amazing guests coming to be on a panel with me that have been on my show in the past, but it'll be all new information about why Tennessee is open for business for Heartland filmmaking, patriotic filmmaking. So if you're in town and you can make it, please check it out. Love to see you there. Maybe give you a hat or a shirt.
That sounds like fun. Steve Abramowicz, thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
Peace out.
Joining me on the show right now, Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder of the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. He said he's traveling right now. He's on the road. That's why you hear that.
Oh, because I thought maybe he was at the airport.
He's skydiving and then calling in. No, he's traveling because he was just at an event in Knoxville, correct?
Yeah. It's going, 65 miles an hour heading west, trying to get home in time for my show. So I have to do your show since it's Wednesdays with Yaffee from the road. I got another hour to go. But I tell you something, you know who is the only people I can see really out of a job, since you were talking about unions with the government shutdown, day 25 or whatever it is?
Yeah, what was that?
Whoever they've been paying to paint the skies every day for the year, because I have not seen a contrail in like 30 days up above, and it's been blue skies both ways, round trip. So I love it.
You say that, but I saw one yesterday. I saw a contrail yesterday.
That was probably a contrail, like the real thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like, I thought of you because I was like, oh, there's one right there. So yeah, we were talking about the union thing, because you have the union here in Chattanooga at the VW plant, and I was going over the offer. It seemed like a pretty generous offer by Volkswagen to the employees there, but the union has rejected it so far. They put forward a counteroffer.
Yeah, they're desperate. I mean, it's a lot like teachers' unions and unions in general. You know, I just did last weekend a panel at the Gideon Film Festival, and we talked all about unions and what AI is going to do to basically put them out of business, because all those wonderful $100 million negotiations that they made for them to have healthcare benefits and, if you write a script, you get a minimum of this, and Tom Cruise gets a maximum of that. Well, if it's made by AI and you're using Tilly Norwood, the AI character, as your leading woman, you don't really have to pay union dues anymore, do you?
Yeah, so you're basically saying the unions have made it too expensive, and they're just incentivizing automation and AI at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of his data centers, right? They're taking the water because they don't want to have to pay McDonald's workers anymore when you can have a kiosk that runs on electricity to flip your burgers. So all the jobs that are unionized, like Starbucks, they'll just say, close the store. We're not going to deal with it. And in the meantime, they automate everything, and you can use your app and your Uber and your Grubhub and your whatnot. It's kind of a transhumanist, as we would call it, future for us.
Yeah, although if we could make fast food fast again, I might be all on board with the AI thing. I just have to tell, I am tired of waiting forever. Fast food, I feel like used to be fast, and that is just not anymore. Anyway, I know you were...
Oh, will it be real meat, Michael? Will it be real meat? You'll never know.
That's a good point. I know you were at an event for someone who's running for governor, correct?
Yeah, so last night I drove all the way. I went and saw at the home barn of a guy who writes for Brandon Lewis, David Seal. His place, he was doing an event for Monty Fritz, who's been on the show many times. So it was kind enough to do that. But this morning was the real reason, is because I went and gave a speech, and I'm a question and answer guy. I don't usually do speeches, but I did it for these guys at Tellico Village in Knoxville. And I got to talk all about the Yaffee Show and tell them, like, you and I broke news. We're the ones that said, hey, data centers are going to drink all your water and take away all your farms, when nobody else was talking about it. And now, if you haven't noticed, Michael, you're famous. They talk about it everywhere all the time. So we broke some news together.
Yeah, although that was really you. you were big on that. But you did it on my show. So I guess I will...
Correct.
I will take some credit.
It's a team effort. We're a union, brother.
Don't
effort.
say that. No. I feel gross now that you said that. But are you supporting Monty Fritz? Because he's running for governor, right?
So, yeah, I wasn't actually supposed to go there, so I wasn't per se supporting him. If you listen to him, he could win. But if you watch what I do, the money, the endorsements, the establishment, he's not gonna. Unless maybe a fourth person comes in and they split the vote, and he might have a chance. I mean, he's a great guy, and I did wave goodbye to him, and he made me get on stage and tell everybody he's been on the show on a microphone. So it was nice for our shows to be able to say, I go on Yaffee every Wednesday. But I'm not supporting anybody because that's a million years from now, and we got elections going on like next month.
Right.
Much more important. And believe it or not, one would lead to the other. Like if one domino falls, then maybe the next one could, but we won't know until we're out of the suspended animation of every 5 minutes political commercials paid for by rhinos and conservatives and MAGA people.
Now, are you talking specifically about the Afton-Bain race versus Van Epps?
Yeah, because I live there, for one.
Yeah.
Although she doesn't. That makes me so bad. She doesn't live in District 7, but she's allowed to run as a Democrat, and she's going to get all the money in the universe. Oh, yeah, and Van Epps is a veteran and a Republican, and he got the endorsements, but he doesn't have a voting record, so we don't really know who he will be when he gets there, but we know it's better than the alternative. It's just kind of typical. Man, there's a lot of speed traps out here, aren't there?
Yeah, please don't get pulled over while you're on the show. Actually, that'd be entertaining.
I'll let the guy go on air. He'll let me off by being famous on the air with you. And he's a union guy. But probably the good unions that we like. So there's nothing wrong with unions. It's just how they misuse their money. That's the problem. But yes, Afton-Bain is a worry of mine because she only lost. Well, she didn't lose. She won the Democratic side by just 5,000 votes less than the Republican did. But there's a lot more Republicans that didn't bother to vote, so they have to come out in December. And I'm just praying there's not a snowstorm or an ice storm, because if it's a low turnout, Democrats can certainly find the votes to win, especially since we have crossover voting and we have a machine-based, thank God we don't have mail-ins like my old hometown of Seattle. So, yeah, she's not impossible. She's just not inevitable.
Yeah, and it's really sad if she did win, because she would get probably national attention, right? You know, kind of as the upset.
All the money in the world. They call her the AOC of Tennessee. Could you imagine if we had the real AOC and the Tennessee version? And over in Memphis side, where they're suing, the mayor's suing Lee to not let the National Guard come clean up the streets, young Justin Pearson wants to run against old Steve Cohen,
right,
who's the only Democrat elected from the, for national office from Tennessee, to replace him with the young activist mindset. So if we got both of them back in D.C., Tennessee would just be, a backwater laughed at.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, he's the founder of the Heartland Journal. So I did want to ask you about something else as well. We had the news yesterday that Jim Jordan, who is the head of the Judiciary Committee in Congress, is recommending to the Department of Justice that John Brennan, former CIA director, be charged basically with perjury because he apparently lied to Congress when it came to whether they were using the Steele dossier to, go after Trump and Russian collusion and all that. He told Congress no, but there's evidence to suggest that he lied, that, they were using the Steele dossier. What do you think about this?
Well, number one, the job of CIA is to lie, so he did his job. The downside of that is he lied to get the job at the CIA because he voted for a guy named Gus Hall, who was a communist who ran against Ronald Reagan back at the height of the Cold War, and they didn't allow communists into the CIA back then, so he said he didn't, but after the fact, he's been outed that he did. So he's been lying for a long time. He also lied to Congress when Dianne Feinstein, who was a Democratic senator from California, my old state, that was on the Intelligence Committee of the Senate, they spied on her, and he said they didn't, but then he was forced to apologize. So now he's just apologizing again, because if you remember, just last week, they made headlines that there were about 10 Republican senators from D.C. that were spied on by the FBI. So he has been lying for a long, long time. So it's nice that Jim Jordan decided today was the day to actually talk about that. But I know all this because I was a big Dan Bongino podcast listener, and he taught us, remember the names, remember the names, remember the names. Well, Brennan was the CIA chief who literally set up shop inside the White House and worked with all the political operatives of the Obama White House to do the Russia collusion hoax, the PP tape, if you remember that, the Steele dossier, everything you could imagine, with his hand-picked London chief, Gina Haspel, who became CIA chief. I don't know how Trump fell for that one, but he did. Literally the entire head of this cabal. So we got Bolton, we got Comey, we got Brennan. There will be more. This is all part of that. And so I'm just glad that finally, better late than never, justice may be served on these people who lie for a living, just for the wrong team.
Yeah, and I remember Brennan, even when he got out of the White House, he just kept going on CNN and just saying the same stuff, Russian collusion. He wouldn't shut up about it. And then, we know nothing.
For that. He and Clapper, who were in cahoots, he was the head of the NSA, they both got very lucrative media deals to go out and keep saying it. Then Comey gets fired, and in comes Andrew McCabe. He gets fired, and he gets a TV gig, too. So these guys have just been doing lawfare on TV.
Right.
But we never used to do that in the past. We had loyal opposition, and we had FBI directors that were nonpartisan, although they probably never really were, but at least they were perceived as such. Now they've got their masks off, and they broke some laws. And I hope that justice is served, because you can vote for anybody you want. There's no mandate, but you can't lie, cheat, and steal when you're a government employee on taxpayer dime. That's not okay.
Steve Abramowicz is the founder of the Heartland Journal. Before I let you go, is the government shutdown ever going to end? I mean, is it ever going to open back up, I guess?
I just wrote an article about it yesterday. I think the Senate is trying to create a pull-up bureau, and the only way they can do that is if they don't have a filibuster. And so what the Democrats are trying to do, because they're sneaky, is get the Republicans like John Thune to cave, use the nuclear option, get rid of the filibuster, get the government back open. Then when they take power after the midterms, they say, well, you did it, so we're going to pass everything we want that you don't like with a majority instead of the way the Constitution says, 60-vote rule. And then we don't have a republic anymore because we deserved it.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the Constitution that you have to have a 60 vote to overturn a filibuster, but it's been a standard rule for a while. And actually, it's a really good point you make, where they probably want an excuse to nuke the filibuster themselves. So they want the Republicans to do it first, and then they can use it. It would not surprise me at all, actually. It's a pretty good point. Steve Abramowicz, founder of the Heartland Journal. Stay safe on the road. Please do not get pulled over or hurt. And we'll talk to you again in the future.
Adios, amigo.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.